All right, and welcome. Good afternoon from us here at Startup Bootcamp. My name is Justin Harmon. I'm the Operations Manager of Floteq World Series, the Brands and Communications Manager for the Australian Sports Technologies Network, and also the Lead Entrepreneur in Residence for the Startup Bootcamp Sports and EventTech Accelerator. But I'm not the important man here. The other man next to me is. Miles, do you want to give us a quick introduction as well as maybe give us a bit of an overview as well of your pitch?
Sure. Hi guys, my name is Miles Lazic and I am the CEO and founder of Floteq Technologies. Floteq Technologies has been around for approximately 2 years, and it was born out of pure necessity, out of running a hospitality venue, a wine bar. We've discovered we were selling great beer, but we also discovered that there was a fairly large loss in draft beverages. So we did our homework. We went and spoke to a whole bunch of venues, and it was a common problem where wastage was a common issue. And it ended up costing a lot of money to not just hospitality venues, but also to entertainment venues such as stadiums and clubs.
Yeah. I was going to say we might jump straight into it. I do apologise at the moment our Q&A is down, but we've got I've got a couple of curvy questions to throw Miles' way. Don't you worry. I might start off with one of the things you mentioned in the pitch was Rockpool Dining Group. We've obviously done a bit of work with them recently. What are some of, I guess, the key behaviours pre and post COVID, especially that you've experienced or they've been able to track using the Floteq system?
Sure. So one of the challenges that a large company such as Rockpool Dining Group, and they have approximately 78 restaurants at the moment, with a plan to expand to another 20 plus another 25 Bavarians around the country in 2020 and 2021. And one of their largest challenges was stock take and how to control waste. So pre-COVID, one of the large problems were essentially unauthorized pours. So Peter and John pouring beers for mates and just passing them on, and not ringing them up in the pos, or pouring the beers and not ringing them up in the pos at all. So there was a huge discrepancy between what was poured and what was actually in the point of sale. Temperature was also an issue, so certain beers weren't served at the right temperature, so the cellar attendees always had to run up and down and really kind of control that temperature side of things, and gassing of the actual beer. So there was a bucket load of challenges there that added to a common problem, which is wastage. And Rockpool kind of ran around the 10% mark in terms of what they were wasting, so what was poured down the drain every single week. So if you imagine that even for a large customer like Rockpool, a keg is roughly about $300, and your entire group goes through 1,000 kegs a week, the dollars add up very, very significantly and very, very quickly.
I can imagine. I was going to say it's a lot of beer that almost makes me want to cry.
That's right.
In these times, I think we've all had a few beers. Look, yeah, as you sort of mentioned, and the way that wastage is such a key part of the beverage industry and trying to combat that. How do you best sort of tackle that problem with Floteq?
So what our technology does, it really kind of fuses hardware and software in a way that provides venues actionable insights on how to control this. So the hardware fits onto the existing infrastructure. So it literally clips onto some of the beer lines, whether they're in the cellar or certainly under the bar. And the magic happens with this little thing. I'm not sure whether you can actually see it. So that's,
if you put it right in front of your face, it works. So.
Oh, there you go. I'll put it right in front of the face. It's a tethered turbine that's connected to a smart flow meter. So the flow meter is then connected to a dashboard in the cloud, and it reports immediately and in real time what is happening with that particular installation. So how we curb this particular wastage is we have 3 points of contact. One is temperature that we measure. We also measure flow and gassing, and we also measure the cleaning cycles. These 3 elements really kind of impact wastage. So if the beer is warmer than 3 or 4 degrees, it starts expanding, it starts foaming up, and you have that problem where you have too much head or not enough, or flat or too gassy. And a lot of it, you've seen it, in pubs or clubs, it goes straight down the drain. The second problem is cleaning those pipes and how often they're actually cleaned. So what the turbines tell us is that the pipes haven't been cleaned regularly, or they have a fairly large amount of build-up and therefore contribute to wastage. And certainly in terms of volume, how much is actually being poured through, and that's the key differentiator there. So we know how much we're actually pouring, we know how much we're selling, and now we can identify where the differences are and really tackle those particular problems, whether it's at the local tap or whether it's at a particular bar or particular level or geographically. It doesn't really matter where it is.
Yeah, it doesn't really discriminate on how it can really be used. It's a jack of all trades sort of thing, as we've discussed in the past.
Exactly right. Exactly right.
So with a system like this, and, you know, it being able to provide such insight and savings, how quick, I guess, is the turnaround in terms of return on investment on bringing in Floteq into, say, the pub or into the
Sure. So depending on the venue and the scale of the actual venue, and how tight the controls are in that particular venue in terms of unauthorized pours and following on, etc., etc. Common wastage is between 9 to 12%. Even really, really tight groups that run a tight ship, you're looking between 6 to 8% in terms of wastage. If you look at in terms of installation and using the Floteq system, on average, the payback full return on investment is between 3 to 6 months. If you have a larger venue or a group of venues, you're looking even less than that. So it is certainly something that eliminates cost immediately, and that's our focus. But certainly right now in post-COVID recovery, the focus is on generating revenue or saving any kind of revenue that may be potentially or may have been potentially lost. So certainly that's how how quickly we achieve ROI.
I was going to say it's also something that we've touched on, as well as, I guess, the ability for the system to straight away be able to provide that revenue source that was gone completely down the drain. It's obviously something as well you can be rather flexible in the way that, I guess, it's paid off, or the way that it works. It's a way to certainly provide the consumer with as much benefit as they can, while you guys can sort of sit there and be like, look, we're going to be able to get back, you know, what we put in from it, just from the pure saving.
Absolutely. Anecdotally, there's a story with one of our customers where one of the newcomers, or the new bartender, recently joined, and he started pouring a beer. The beer itself was foaming quite significantly. And he ran down to the cellar to talk to the cellarman and say, "Hey, look, we've got a problem with the foaming beer." So if you can imagine, this is a multi-story pub. So by the time he got down to the cellar, and this line would be running at least 130 to 140 meters. So by the time he got to the cellarman, informed him of what's going on, someone said, "Yep, no problem. Give me a minute. I'll come up with you." Came up with him. By the time he came back, the tap was still running. So by the time they came back, due to inexperience, obviously it wasn't malicious damage, but due to inexperience, he left the tap running, and that was 50 litres of beer down the drain. So $300 in hard cost, and well over $1,500 in potential sales lost. So our system would immediately alert the local bar manager that, hey, this tap is running, you know, in excess of 15 litres per minute. Please go turn it off right now. There's something wrong with it.
Yeah, I was going to say, or unless it's like the 7-Eleven thing where you can take whatever you want and put it under the tap. Is that?
Yeah, well, yeah, bring your own bucket. Probably would go against every RSA rule, but yeah, certainly something we can do.
It sounds quite Australian to me.
Yeah, of course.
I was going to say something else. You sort of mentioned in the pitch as well, is obviously possibly working on making a POC with the MCG.
Uh-huh.
I guess with that, I guess one part of the question is, how does Floteq best serve stadiums? As well as, could you possibly take us through, you know, a typical large stadium process, and maybe even quantify the savings at that high level? Obviously, we've spoken a bit about the savings, and the insights that, you know, it can provide such a large scale venue. Sure.
So, for example, we are certainly engaged at the moment with Melbourne Cricket Ground. It's a really humbling experience. I've can't say that I'm a huge AFL fan. I do like a little bit of cricket, but to come down to the iconic MCG and really kind of stand in the middle of that pitch when there's nobody around, it's quite surreal. So I was quite humbled to have that opportunity. Same thing happened with Sydney Cricket Ground. One of our large customers is a Sydney stadium, and in one of their key events of the year. They attract well over 90,000 people to the event. So it's a large football event. At that time, for that particular event, they'll probably go between 1,500 to up to 2,000 kegs in a sitting, and that's a 92 to 100 to 120 minute type time frame. And if you obviously take a little bit on each side of the game. So what they're particularly interested in is finding out exactly how much they're wasting, but more importantly, what they were actually interested in is the type of behaviour of the consumption of beer in time intervals. So the question was posed to us, how do we do that? And it was a little bit tricky, but when we thought about it and worked back through it, we were able to provide our customer with 15-minute intervals on reporting of how the beer was consumed. That gave them a real good insight on how many more people to place on a particular bar, and really kind of rearrange the labour force. Some bars were a hell of a lot more busier than others, whereas by redistributing the workforce, they were able to actually serve a hell of a lot more beer. And by knowing in those 15-minute intervals, they knew exactly that, pre-halftime, post-halftime, where they need to allocate the resources. So that was a side benefit to the entire project. But the key interesting thing was their wastage was running around 10%, and it wasn't. There was not a lot of theft to it, but there was a lot of carelessness to it in terms of how it was poured. And how the temperature was being.
How many people are trying to serve as well.
Spot on, right? So that was a particular issue, and then there was also because of a huge demand, it was an overgassing issue, right? So we've picked that up immediately, and we managed to put the gas down to the appropriate levels, and that eliminated foaming immediately. So in their usual event space, they were running about 10% wastage. We managed to reduce that down to about 4.5%. So that was a significant saving in just one event alone. So when you apply different mathematics to it and the costing of beer and all the beverages, it hurts. It hurts to see all that beer go down the drain.
No, I was going to say, especially if you think about the MCG as an example, you've got at least 4 AFL games being played there a week usually.
Correct.
You're saving that each game, you're pretty quickly going to be turning into out of the red into the black for sure.
Correct. And this is, a capacity of 100,000 people at the MCG. I think it's the largest Australian stadium. So certainly once we go ahead with the pilot, we'll have a much clearer picture in terms of what we'll be saving them. But we're on the right track.
Yeah, for sure. I was going to say, I will acknowledge as well, that's a big comment from you to actually compliment Melbourne in terms of the
it is.
I think we've definitely turned a corner here.
We have. I like to engage in the whole Melbourne versus Sydney debate, but I think we win. You guys can't go anywhere.
That's another call that we'll have to have. I think hopefully there's a fair few Melburnians here that come with the pitchforks with me about that one. I will apologise just quickly to everyone again. The live Q&A, we are working on it right now. It's currently non-functioning. So like I've said before, I do have some questions for Miles here. Hopefully I address some of the ones that are sort of in your mind. There's also Miles's email on the side as well of the page here. So feel free to send them through to him through email as well. We'll try and get the Q&A up and running hopefully before the end of the session. I guess another way, we've talked about the stadiums, we've talked about pubs and venues like that. What can Floteq sort of provide, or is it possible to provide it to sort of typical non-permanent festivals? So we're talking, showgrounds and stuff like that. How does the process sort of work there as well?
Of course. Throughout this entire process of the startup bootcamp, we've been, I guess, quite privileged to be introduced to a bunch of organisations that either have semi-permanent or permanent fixtures, and one of them was and is the Grand Prix Australia. And unfortunately, this year, due to COVID, that event had to be cancelled. So in our conversations, when we kind of really the whole point of what Floteq could do is to really ensure the consistency and integrity of the beer that's actually being poured. So our devices are fairly mobile. It's not a type of device that once you put into an infrastructure you cannot remove. So it is a mobile unit that can, as long as there is a mobile network around, it'll work. So what we're able to do is install our devices into a mobile kegerator around the venues. I believe that the Grand Prix has somewhere about around 100 points where you can actually get a beer as takeaway. So what we'll be able to do in the next years coming is install our devices in that particular in those particular points of sale, and we'll be able to measure the temperature and the consistency of the actual beer. So, you know, the key element for Grand Prix is to make sure that they have, you know, really cold, really super tasty, you know, rightly gassed type of Heineken, which is sold in, you know, tastes exactly the same as it does in Amsterdam, where it's made, as it does in Melbourne, where it's consumed. So our equipment allows them to really kind of focus on that integrity and brand integrity and consistency, outside of the fact that it does immediately provide them stock take and how much was consumed during the time.
Yeah, I was going to say that might be something as well we can sort of expand on, because we've spoken a lot about, I guess, pub owners or venue providers or stuff like that, but also the brands is something that you've been very strong and passionate about, is, you know, brand empowerment and stuff like that. Did you want to talk a bit more about how, you know, you can really provide some insights for brands on that side of the fence as well?
Absolutely. So where Floteq is really kind of relevant for the breweries, really, and for the owners of the actual brands, is we make sure that the brand integrity is intact. Right. So with the relationship between brewers and pubs or venues, generally is viewed as a supplier and a seller. All right. So what we focus on these days is if we can provide a way for the breweries to make sure to monitor how their brands are being dispensed, that's certainly going to be of value to them. Because at the moment, you know, how do I pour a Peroni in a particular bar is particularly, it's up to me as an owner. But when the breweries have an insight, whether, you know, Peroni is served at 2 degrees or 4 degrees or 5 degrees, they can certainly work with the local venues to allow them to be better at dispensing their premium beverages. You know, I know that I really like really cold beer, right? And I know that Asahi Super Dry is potentially it needs to be served really cold, right? You don't want to serve it at 6 or 7 degrees because it's just not going to taste the same. As I'm sure you're aware, there's an old anecdote, and you've spoken to many of your friends who are from Ireland, and they say, "Oh, would you like a Guinness?" "Oh, I don't like Guinness." "Oh, well, you haven't tried Guinness in Ireland." Why is that, right? So a Guinness should be tasting exactly the same in Dublin and in Copenhagen and in Rome and in Sydney, right? We allow that to happen by making sure that the conditions that particular brand is poured at is optimal at exactly the way that the brewer intended it to be.
Yeah, I was going to say that's a huge thing, I think, as well as you could even look into the sort of benchmarking space in terms of if a brewery brought this on, they'd be able to say, hey, this is what we like our beer, you know, running at, and if you have this system, then you're able to provide that, which is key for them in terms of obviously brand integrity and stuff like that. And I'll happily put my hand up and say there's nothing I hate more than buying a beer and it's room temperature.
Yeah,
no one likes that.
Maybe like your local pub, right?
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say, you did give us a bit of a product demonstration of the little unit. I guess with that, it's obviously quite a refined and compact, you know, device already. In terms of from a hardware front, you know, is there, you know, what's next in terms of Floteq? Is there anything you guys are looking into, or, you know, similar sort of hardware that you're looking to provide to the food and beverage industry?
There is certainly. So what we're looking at the moment, and we've already made a couple of prototypes, and we're going through the certification process for the Australian market at the moment. Certainly the comms side of our devices are compliant to all the Australian networks, but we are looking at obviously certifying the device to be AUNZ compatible. Most of our devices, or well, all of our devices really, are really IoT driven. So they're technology driven. We are looking at solving problems that have been around for many years, but haven't been able to be addressed because of the lack of technology, or you know, the limitation of expense, or a limitation of running it, or just simply did not kind of make sense. So one of the next devices that we're actually really active in at the moment, we've built it, we've created it, we've made sure that it's compliant across all the networks, is a device which controls refrigeration. So if you've ever been in a cafe or a bar or a milk bar or wherever, and you've seen those 2-door fridges or 3-door fridges, and you saw that little display unit that kind of has the little temperature on there, they're usually quite dumb devices, right? So you have to manually, press a button to increase the temperature or decrease the temperature or turn the light off.
Like a heating or cooling system.
Right, exactly, right? So it's quite a dumb device. What we've done is we've enabled it to be quite a smart device to report to us on an immediate basis of what's going on with that particular fridge. So if you can imagine, a large installation of vending machines, for example, right? Why do they need to be turned on from 11 o'clock at night till 5 o'clock in the morning, right? It's a huge amount of energy that's actually being consumed. Our devices will allow complete control of that fridge remotely. So you'll be able to turn it on and off, right? Therefore, immediately reduce the consumption of power. But more importantly, we'll be able to track how many people have actually walked past the unit, how many people have bought it. It'll give us the ability to read preemptive maintenance and know when the compressors are about to die or when the actual unit itself is about to die. So all of that leads into huge cost savings for the operators. And more importantly, they actually now have insights of how those particular machines are operating, right? Are they profitable? What are the sales reports from it? How many people are walking past and opening the doors and actually buying the particular product, as opposed to anecdotal stock dates, 3 to 4 weeks down the track. So they'll have that immediate information.
Yeah, I was going to say it's almost breaching onto, do you want to join an energy accelerator as well?
Yeah, pretty much.
Let's go back to back, mate.
Yeah, well, why not? I'm happy to keep going. That's fine. There'll be some repeats, but that's okay.
There'll be some repeats, but that was something actually I was going to jump onto next. Is something that we sort of wanted to talk about. I guess was the journey throughout the past 3 months that we've obviously shared together. And I apologise for the fact that you had to put up with me for the past 3 months. But did you want to talk a bit about, I guess, your startup bootcamp experience? How you've really found this accelerator program?
Sure. Look, I think when we started the whole process, I mean, we came in fairly late into the entire process of elimination and finding out about the startups, etc. So I think the first conversation that I had with SBC was around December timeframe, if I'm not mistaken. And then by February it was announced that we made the top 20, and then we went into the selection days, and that was the top 10. I think for any of the future courses, for any of the future accelerators, whether they be in fintech or energy or what have you, if there are startups out there, I highly recommend you guys do it. One of the I guess strengths that I have as a CEO, as a founder, is my ability to see the big vision and go out there and create networks and really kind of sell the product. And that's great. But there's also needs to be a balance in terms of how the business is operated, how it's ran, what structures need to be implemented, legalities, and Startup Bootcamp certainly allowed us to be able to do that and to really kind of have a holistic approach to business. It's great to have an idea, even if it's a very unique one and it's a potential unicorn, but to have that structure behind it and the alumni and the network and the support of people around it, we found it invaluable, absolutely invaluable. So I highly recommend it to all the young entrepreneurs out there, certainly younger ones than me.
I was going to say also a little shout out to Jamie, who's one of the other startups. Also, I guess it's another point you can also learn from the other startups in the cohort, is he even ran his own IP session after 25 years of IT. So you even learn a lot from the other startups in the program as well. Absolutely.
I mean, Jamie brings from Floteq brings huge. A vast array of experience, and to be able to tap into that outside of the program and just kind of have those conversations from an IP perspective was just great. So I've got nothing but to sing the praises.
I'd have to agree with you, mate. It's all the team that's behind me. I'm certainly only a small part of it as well. I was going to say one thing we can probably touch on as well is, I guess, with such a device that could create such savings, it could be a real game changer. What I guess is your vision of the future? What's, I guess, if you look 5 years down the line, what do you see Floteq being?
My vision for Floteq is a fairly simple one. We would like to be an integral part of everyday society, right? In terms of IoT, we see IoT solving issues across domestic, commercial use, industrial, you name it. And there are so many challenges out there that need to be overcome. And we now have the technologies to be able to solve those easily, cheaply, to be readily available and to make them last. So Floteq is just on the start of its journey in the IoT space. Technologies are constantly evolving and changing, and our advantage is that we are nimble enough to be able to change with it. So depending on the demands of the world, we'll be addressing those particular challenges as they come. So we won't be shutting ourselves off to anything, but we'll certainly be exploring unique opportunities across all sorts of industries and all sorts of spaces.
I was going to say also, I guess with that is, I should apologize again quickly that yes, the Q&A is currently down at the moment. So if you do have any questions that you have for Miles, don't put them through the function at the moment, or you can try it and see what happens. But Miles's email is just on I believe it would be the right of me. I'm probably getting that wrong. But it's on the page. You can send him an email with your questions. He'll happily get back to you. He's someone that definitely will answer any question. When we were vetting for this, he was certainly someone that didn't shy away from any topic, so he'll be sure to answer anything that you want to give him. But one thing I was going to ask you as well, Miles, was I'm sure we've got a bunch of different people here, watching us at the moment or watching back on this. Very interested in the product, like I was when I first sort of saw you on selection days, or Ollie mentioned to it just before selection days. From the wide array of people out there, is there any sort of help that you're really searching for from, I guess, the technology ecosystem, the sports technology ecosystem at the moment as well?
So in the tech ecosystem, we're always looking for partners. So there's always people that have done things before, or they know how to do it better, faster, cheaper, or more efficiently. So we're certainly looking for partnerships. We have a fairly strong ecosystem of partnerships with people such as IBM and Fujitsu, GeoWAN as a network, Vodafone, Telstra, and Optus as network providers, and some of the smaller partners and resellers. But we certainly love to grow that particular network. Just some of the partners might be able to open the doors that we can't. They might have trusted customers that would take their advice and certainly be able to introduce us in, and would love to work with those people. We are looking for investors at the moment as well. We'd like to really accelerate and rapidly grow Floteq and really kind of position it as a key player in the IoT system in Australia. I think Australia does have a unique place in the world because we are so isolated and face so many geographical challenges and distance challenges. I think we're fairly uniquely positioned to really come up with and really rest on innovation, and not just have it as some sort of political throwaway term, but truly become an innovation hub because we have such vast challenges. And we certainly believe at Floteq that we are beginning to do that. So certainly looking for investors to help us grow and get there quicker. Certainly looking for corporate partnerships and customers. So by all means, please reach out.
You touched on a good point there as well about, the Australian market and being at a real good sort of, especially in the beverage industry. I think it's fair to say that we're a great test market, as Brian from South Africa, one of the other startups, has certainly found out as well. When we look beyond, I guess we were sort of talking about the future, but sort of touching back on that in terms of, markets outside of Australia, where do you see Floteq? So where do you think your, next area that you want to take over in terms of other countries or other regions?
Our expansion plans are fairly simple and organic, and I think we've done that purposefully in terms of looking exactly what kind of markets are the most applicable, or what kind of markets are the most similar to the Australian one. So, by default, we'll look at New Zealand, right? So New Zealand is certainly a much smaller market, but a very similar market to operate. So with our calculations, we've kind of figured out that the total addressable market in New Zealand alone, or the near future market in New Zealand, is roughly about $10 to $12 million. Australia is certainly significantly larger. Where our next expansion would be, we'd love to go into Asia, particularly around Japan and South Korea. All of the Asian tigers, as they call them, because they are fairly advanced economies that are similar-ish to the Australian one. A big target for us is the North American market and the Canadian market. Simply because Canada, because we're a part of the Commonwealth, so it's going to be a lot easier to actually, to get the devices in there, have them certified and operate a lot easier. But more importantly, because of the footprint of operations. So the stadiums are very similar in terms of dispensing beer, etc. But also the venues, the pubs and clubs are usually, your 12 to 15 to 25 different types of taps in a bar, as opposed to the European market, which you kind of have one or two, three, four, five at most. So our target market is definitely New Zealand. We're looking certainly at Hong Kong and Japan and South Korea, but North America and Canada are also primary candidates for expansion for sure.
I don't want to give this question might be a bit tough for you, but I will ask it in terms of, I guess, competitors in this market. It's something we probably haven't touched on. I don't want to give them too much shine, as this is your time, but maybe it's the time to trounce them. But who do you sort of see, especially when you look to expand beyond, say, Australia? Who do you see as your main competitors in the market?
Sure. Look, we do have a couple of competitors, but a lot of them are fairly limited in terms of what they can offer. They can offer a particular feature and focus on a particular process, whereas we've kind of combined a whole lot of them. One of our biggest competitors was a company by the name of Beverage Analytics. It was owned by the largest brewer in the world, InBev, a Brazilian company, who coincidentally owned CUB and sold CUB to Asahi just recently. The Beverage Analytics, as a part of InBev, was then removed from that particular space, which really kind of left Floteq to fill those particular gaps. There are a couple of other players out there, but they're very manual. It's very manual in terms of readouts, etc. Whereas ours is very much a in the cloud, real time, rugged type space. So I think we're fairly uniquely positioned amongst our competitors. But look, competition is a good thing, right? They can certainly just push us to be better and to innovate more and to provide a better outcome for our customers, as opposed to focusing on what they do. So yeah, if that makes sense.
I think to me that endpoint is just a bring it to me. Is that just come on, bring it on?
It is. Bring it on. That's right. Look, capitalism and competition is a good thing, right? It'll make us innovate and push forward. So I really do look forward to it.
No, I was going to say with one of the sort of the industries, obviously you've had some experience or had some success with stadiums and stuff like that. Do you sort of see that? What do you sort of see as your main target market? Is it the local pub, or is it the stadium? What one are you sort of looking to conquer, or become your real MO going forward?
I think that we've siloed our customers into three different segments. So we certainly see entertainment and stadiums as one, because it is a fairly different type of beast. I mean, you've got 50 to 55 events per annum. They're not open every single day. It's a different type of requirement. The other silo is certainly the pubs. The pubs and clubs. They are a different beast altogether. Again, they're open every single day. They work a little bit different. There's a lot of transient staff in terms of casual workforce, etc. And then the third silo is our breweries, which is a very niche market, certainly in Australia. Look, craft beer is growing, but the trend is that the larger breweries tend to snap up the small breweries very quickly as soon as they get bigger, which maybe makes me think maybe I should start up a brewery and sell it off to the big boys. But certainly,
with the beer, mate.
Hey, done. See, we'll have a brewery and the technology with it.
That's for Miles and me. Whoever's on this call, if you're looking at clips, that's with him back. I get the commission fee on that one.
Done. We'll make sure something happens. But yeah, that's our third market. So we're definitely looking at the entertainment industry. They have a certain set of requirements. We're looking at the hospitality industry. They also have a certain set of requirements that are a little bit different. And breweries have something different altogether. I mean, for breweries in particular, what's really important is, as we talked about, the brand integrity and consistency of the actual brand, marketing insights are absolutely huge. So, how efficient is your brand at a particular time in a particular location? And to have that ability to be able to really understand that in real time is paramount. And it's going to be a difference between, whether Carlton Draft is going to be more successful than a Two Is New. So, if I were a marketing manager for Carlton Draft or for Two Is New for that matter, I'd really kind of want to know how my brands are performing at a particular bar at a particular time. So, between 7 and 9 o'clock when the footy's on, even though we've got major sponsors, VB, for example, for all the footy games in the NRL.
Blues, yeah.
As an owner of Two Is New, I'd love to know how Two Is New is performing against, with all the marketing that VB has, and vice versa. So it's not, picking a particular brewery, but that kind of insight and having that insight in real time is invaluable. This marketing's not quite right. Well, let's pump it up because we know that Two Is New is not working as well here, or Only's not working as well here, or whatever particular brand is. So that's something that we can certainly provide to the breweries.
Yeah, for sure. We'll start wrapping up in a minute. One thing I might get you to do is just give us that 60-second pitch again, that money pitch you've been working on as we our Friday pitch for beers here at Startup Bootcamp. I might give you the floor to just run through the pitch once more for me.
You have really kind of caught me off guard. So I've got to find it somewhere in the back of my brain. But
I've been talking about the brand for an hour. I'm sure or 45 minutes. I'm sure you can give me a good example of those.
Easy. Look, to really sum it up, in 2013, my wife and I, realised a dream that was long in the making, and that's to open up our own wine bar and really have a great hospitality venue where it'd be kind of like a place to go with your friends, right? Where you'd meet up and was a little bit rugged and you enjoyed great food and great wine and beer and, a place where people would say g'day and cheers to you. Food was great, beer was great, wines were great, but our sales reports were never really kind of corresponding to what we were selling to exactly what was in the till. So we got onto adventuring, try to figure out, is this a common problem across the industry? And very quickly we found out that it was. So between 9 to 12%, what we found out in a survey that we did prior to launching Floteq was beer wasted down the drain. And of critical importance was also the brand integrity and the consistency of the beers being sold. So we thought, how do we do this? So we created with my background in IT from Google and Motorola and ruggedized devices from Motorola Solutions to data analytics at Google, we kind of combined the two together and created a system that really focuses on eliminating wastage, really improving operations of hospitality venues, but also focusing on consistency and brand integrity of those particular brands that are being sold. So I think that kind of really sums it up.
Well, there is one more thing I do want to run through, and it's something that I only heard about a few weeks ago, and it's something I'd love for you to give the audience and to those watching afterwards. Do you want to talk to the people a bit about what your plan is in your homeland in terms of what you want to sort of do with the success of Floteq?
So what do you mean in terms
there was something I remember. There was something about you wanted to build something back in Serbia. What was it?
Indeed. So I come from I like to think of myself as a religious person. I'm not quite sure whether I deserve the title or not, but one of my passions, and I think it's a part of Floteq from inception, is to really be able to give back. So when we are able to, and obviously I'm going to be held to account here. That's
fine, mate. I'm putting you on the spot.
Yeah, thank you for putting me on the spot. One of my passions is certainly to help people with rehabilitation in terms of drug dependencies, and what my personal goal is to build a monastery in Serbia that actually focuses on drug rehabilitation, in various types of drugs, and through a spiritual journey. So hopefully you have put me on the spot, and now you're holding me to account. So now I have no choice but to make Floteq an absolute success that's going to allow us to do this.
Well, I was going to say it's also to me, I mean, once I sort of heard about that, it just made me want to get behind you even more. And I'm sure that's what, to some of those people watching at the moment, I'm sure they're feeling the same way. I will apologise to us once again. The Q&A hasn't worked for us here, but hopefully I've answered a couple of your questions. There is Miles's email on the side of the screen there. Feel free to reach out to Miles after this session and send him through any other questions or any queries you might have. But we might wrap it up there, Miles. It's been a pleasure over the past 3 months to work with you. I'll shout out Devin as well, who's just on the call as well. Who's been doing a lot of the maintenance stuff for us in the background as we've talked away. But yeah, can't thank you enough, mate, for the time today and the effort that you've put in over the past couple of months. It's been great to watch you grow, and can't wait to watch you grow in the future.
And thank you again to you and the entire SBC camp, SBC team. It's just been an absolute pleasure to be working on. It was a really exciting day today as well. So thank you immensely.
Thanks, mate.